The Namibia Statistics Agency was established to provide accurate and reliable and timely data to policymakers. The provision of accurate and timely statistics is necessary for evidence-based planning of the government of Namibia, the private sectors, and all stakeholders, including the Namibian statistical system. This is NSA. This is NSA. This is NSA. This is NSA.
Your Excellency, I have decided to title my presentation Namibia, a Nation on the Move. And it's because based on the results that I've seen, not only from the census, I think that as a nation we have a lot to celebrate about. And often we don't do that enough. I'm going to start off with two statistics, not from the census report, that will demonstrate just how much we have achieved in a short period of time. And I will supplement that with additional information from the census. However, I will also show some of the challenges that still remain with us. But based on our achievements, I actually would like to say up front already that I know we will overcome the remaining challenges. The first slide I want to show you is poverty in Namibia. What happened since 1993? The first time we measured poverty. On a country-wide level, the poverty rate was 70%. It means 7 out of every 10 people would be considered poor, according to our benchmark of poverty, which is linked to international benchmarks. By the year 2304, that figure has declined to 38%. In 2009-10, it has declined to 30% or 29%. Director of Ceremonies, that translates into approximately 360,000 people that were lifted out of poverty. I think this is significant. I think it's significant to slash the poverty rate by 40% in a period of less than 20 years. You can compare it globally, it happens rarely. Yes, when you migrate from poverty, people are not well off yet. And there's the danger that they can be pushed back into poverty through droughts, through floods, through other events. And this is where our social safety nets will have to play a key role to prevent that from happening. But this is also at a regional level. I've selected 3 regions. In Ongwena, the poverty rate was 89% in 1993. In the Rongo region, 44%. And Commerce was more well off at 27%. Poverty in these regions declined to 56, 14 and 8%, and further to 37 and 11%. In the Commerce region, you will see that the poverty rate has increased slightly from 8% to 11% in 2009. And this is partly because of migration from the urban areas into the rural cities. And this is something we have to check going forward. Now, another indicator that shows to me progress that we have achieved is when we look at life expectancy. What has happened to that? So here I want to compare us to a few countries, and I want to take us back to even before independence, to 1950. And in 1950, you can see right in the middle there is a small dot called Namibia in 1950. So in 1950, the life expectancy of Namibia was about 40 years, and the income per capita was about 2,000. Now, most countries would like to be up in the corner of the yellow where the US was in 1950, where the life expectancy was already approaching 70 years, and the income levels was close to $20,000. So what has happened? You can see the world, Namibia has made progress. It's a small bubble. The bubble is small, by the way, because of the population. And our life expectancy has increased to just over 60%. But this is not where I'm impressed with Namibia. I'm impressed with the next slide. Again, in 1991, we had a life expectancy of about 60 and a per capita income of just below 4,000 adjusted income. South Africa, the bigger bubble just next to Namibia, also blue, was slightly ahead of us. Higher income, higher per capita, and higher life expectancy. And then again, if we play the world since then, what has happened? You can see Namibia first decline and then it shoots up. With independence, a tremendous challenge came, the HIV/AIDS pandemic. And Namibia was one of the countries that unfortunately had the highest infection rate. And as a result, our life expectancy first plummeted to close to 50 years. But then because of good policy of government, because of the introduction of free ARVs, we have reversed and we are now back to a life expectancy above 60. And our income has also grown. Next to us is South Africa. Their life expectancy has plummeted to about 50 years. And because they've introduced ARVs much later than Namibia, you can see that in terms of life expectancy, we actually in Namibia today has a higher life expectancy on average than South Africa. And I think this to me is evident of a smart policy. And these are policies that governments should be applauded for. Now, as I promised, I will bring you to the census. In 1991, we had a population of 1.4 million. And then the population started to grow. First at a high rate of about 2.6 per annum, and we hit 1.8 million in 2011, 2001, and then the growth slowed. And by 2011, we had a growth rate of a population of 2.1 million Namibians. I think today we're slightly more, but 2011 that was 2.1 million. So, but where are the Namibians living? By region, you can see the majority are still in the Khomas region. It is followed then by the Oangwena region, Umsati, and the region with the lowest population is the Omaheki region with 71,000 people in the year 2011. We can also see where at a constituency level where people are staying. And you can see, I did not plot the figures here, but the figures are available in the report. You will know at a constituency level how many people are living in your region, in your constituency, and what is the breakdown in terms of gender and the population structure. For time, we can't go into that. But there are two regions that showed phenomenal growth in terms of population. The first is the Irongo region, where the population increased from 99,000 to 150,000 in a period of 10 years. The Khomas region, the population increased from 231,000 to 334,000. Other regions have grown at a slower rate. So some of the factors that explain the growth rate in these two regions, in Irongo, has been the harbor that has been really starting to take off, the fishing industry, and in particular the mining sector that has attracted many people to the Irongo region. In the Khomas region is still known for its above average infrastructure. It's still the government seat. It's still where the financial center of the country is. And so these are factors that explain why these two regions have grown by so much. So maybe a next question then is to ask, from which regions did these two regions pull population? And I'm going to try to show it with 2 or 3 slides. Let's first look at the Irongo region. Where did people come from? Irongo region, most of the people from the Irongo region came from Oangwena, about 12,000. But the Irongo region also lost people to other regions. It got about 12,000 people from Oangwena, it got about 2,000 people from Karas, and about 8,100 people from Caprivi went also to the Irongo region. And as I said, the Irongo region also lost people. And when I say lost, I mean people that moved from Irongo to other regions. So where did they go to? The first place people go to from Irongo will be to Komas. And about 9,000 people came went from Irongo region to the Komas region. But people also went to other regions. And as you can see, some people went from Irongo up to Caprivi. About 107 people went from the Irongo region to the Caprivi region, and about 800 to the Karas region. So let's look at Komas also. Where did people come from? From the Komas, the main source was the Omsati region, where about 31,000 people left the Omsati region to go to the Komas region. But the Komas region also attracted from other regions. And where it got from, the slides are available and you can look at the figures later. I just want to highlight some few figures. For example, the Komas region also attracted about 9,200 people from the Kavango region. Or it also attracted about 10,000 people from Omaheke, or 6,000 from the Karas region. So you can see the people that are coming to Komas is really from all corners of the country. In the Komas region also, of course, people left. And when they leave from Komas, where do they go? Majority of us from the Komas region, we like the coast. So about 8,500 went to the coast. But some of us also, we say, okay, maybe it's too cold in Swakop, let's go to other places. And we also find ourselves in going to other places as far as Caprivi, as far as the Kunini region, as far as the south. For example, 350 people went from the Komas region to the Caprivi region. I also have one on the Karas region to illustrate, but I will be a bit brief on that one. The main people that came from the Karas region, that moved from the Karas region, came also from Omsati. In the second place was the Kavango, and I think maybe I attribute that to some of the horticultural activities in the Karas region that's attracting people from Omsati and Kavango. I'm not going to show the others, but I'm just going to show you what happened if Karas people would like to leave. In the first place, they come to Komas. In the second place, they will go to the Hardap region. So this is how our people have been moving over the past 10 years. Now, one thing that has also happened a lot that we've seen is the rate of urbanization. It has increased from 28% in 1991, 2001 it went to 33%, and currently almost half of the population stays in cities. And I must say, if you look at the rate of increase to cities, I think by the time of the next census, there will be more than 50% of Namibians living into cities. And that brings with it new challenges. One of them I've highlighted, where we've seen poverty starting to increase in the Komas region. The sources of income is another variable that we try to capture in the census. And the main source of income for Namibians as a whole, 48% of Namibians get their main source of income from a wage and a salary. So we like to sell our labor. Only about 12% venture into business. And it also differs for males and for females. About 11% of males tend to be in business activities, which is actually slightly lower than for females. And remember, when we speak here of business, it's not just the formal business that we see. It's also the informal business. And there are a lot of females, our mothers and sisters, are generating income to sustain their livelihoods. I've also tried to look at language groups. I picked two of them, the Germans. They tend to get about 20% of the income from business activity and only 44% from drawing a wage or salary. On the other hand, the San community, again, about 11% of them are involved in business activities. Now, let me go to what happened to households' access to safe water. So here, unfortunately, sort of a sad story. As you can see, in 2001, the map was very blue. Let me first define safe water. Safe water, the way we measured it in the census, say you have piped water in your house, or you have piped water outside your house, or you have access to public pipe water, or you have water that's covered by something, and then you have other water that's not safe to drink. And you can see, already in 2001, the map was fairly blue, and in many of the constituencies, here we are considering the constituencies, many of them had an access rate of over 80%. In Karas, there was only one constituency where the access rate was less than 80%. And in 2011, the Karas region turned blue completely. But for some of the northern regions, you can see the color has changed slightly. So what we are saying here is that people have less access to safe water. What we understand is that there has been some pricing that was introduced to some of the public pipe water. And that has deterred people from using some of the publicly available pipe water. Electricity, what has happened there? Here you can also see progress has been made. Our map was fairly yellow. There's some parts blue where there was electricity of less than 20%. In 2001, there were only 3 spots where we had more than 80% electricity. You can see in the Commerce region, there's some white spots. That's probably Windhoek. And then at the Erongo region, also white spot. And far in the south. So those constituencies had electricity of, or households in those constituencies had an access rate of more than 80%. And then the others were between 60 and 80 and 40 and 60%, and many of them below 20%. But by 2011, we see that picture has changed. So we see more people are starting to have access to electricity. Let me just show that quickly. 2011, can you see the difference? So I think there's some good progress on the electricity side. How was the population distributed? Out of the 2.1 million people that we have, about 57% of them fall in the age bracket 15 to 59 years. So these are what we call the people, the productively active people of the society. The 23% fell in the age bracket 5 to 14 years, and 0 to 4 years accounted for 14% of the population, and the elderly for 7%. Now that 15 to 59 years bracket translated to approximately 1.2 million people. We also looked at not only Namibians but also non-Namibians during the census, and we counted that out of the total population that we counted, 97% were Namibians, and only 3% of the population were non-Namibians. So who are these non-Namibians that were there during the census count? In the first place were the Angolans, and Angolans accounted for 29% of the non-Namibians, or 30%. So that was about 19,000 Angolans. But if you compare to the 2001 census, it's actually a rapid reduction. In the 2001 census, the Angolan community accounted for 41% of the total non-Namibians. And this can be attributed to the peace that has returned to Angola, and people have started to go back. I wanted to show the Chinese community, but in the census we did not pick. We have grouped China with Asian and Oceanic countries. Because sometimes, when I move around, people say, oh, they're just Chinese around every corner. But actually the data shows it's not a case. It's about I will assume of this 5%, the Asian and Oceanic, I will assume safely maybe 90% are of Chinese origin, if not more. But only 5%, or about 3,500, did we count during the census night. We also look at, other interesting statistics like, we call them the civil registrations, vital statistics, and one of them is how many people are married in Namibia. Here we consider people 15 years and above, because we say when you're 15 you can get married, although I understand there are some people that get married at an earlier age. But about 60%, close to 60% were never married, and 20% were married with a certificate, 7.6% traditionally married, divorces 1.3%, and separated 0.7%. Now, this is a very important slide. Here we are looking at how are we preparing for becoming a knowledge-based society. And we consider people from 3 years and above. And this is not ownership. Here we measure your engagement to ICT services. And I think the sad part here shows that 70%, close to 70% of our population still, the most intimate engagement they have with ICT is the radio. If you look at internet, only 9% of the population. Computers, only 11% of the population. So I think this is another area that maybe we can pay more attention going forward. And I hope to see great reversals in the 2021 census. We also look at the ownership of assets. When Namibians buy, what do we buy? What do we own? And again, the radio is one of the asset classes that 71% of the population at least own a radio. In the second place, a cell phone. Now, here we have to be clear. Here we focus on ownership. It's not, cell phones are more than 60%. But it's because many people buy 3-4 phones and they give to their kids or to others. So it doesn't reflect the penetration of the cell phone. It's just the ownership of the asset. And about 22% of Namibians actually own cars. Now, one way where we also look at the middle class is at items like TV, refrigerators, stoves, and microwaves. One would expect, if you have a strong middle class, that ownership would almost be 100%. But for us, it's still very low, and it shows that scope for the middle class to grow. There's actually scope for business also to provide these sorts of goods to the Namibian population as we expect income levels to increase over time. We also look at housing. Now, there are different types of housings where people live in. One is you can see the majority of Namibians, 38%, stay in what we call traditional dwellings. And then about close to over 40% will stay in brick houses. And the brick houses can be a detached house, a semi-detached house, or apartment or flat. But then there's also 16% of the population that stays in improvised houses. And improvised houses is just a fancy word that we use for shack. So 16% of our population stay in shacks. And that translates into approximately 80,000 households. A household has about 4 to 5 people. So it translates into close to 400,000 Namibians that stays in shacks. And again, it's also concentrated in the urban areas. Because in the Khomas region, about 27,000 households stay in shacks. That's 30% of the population of Khomas. 32% of the population of the Irongo region, or 14,000 households, stay in shacks. We have also captured people living with disabilities, and about 4% of our Namibian population, or close to 100,000, have one or the other sort of disability. In the first place will be people that have impairments to their arms and legs. 28% of those people that are disabled, they have a visual impairment. 16% hearing difficulties, and mental disabilities 14%. And another interesting statistic that I did not capture here is that 42% of the disabled, they find it difficult to engage in learning or economic activities. And I think, again, that's an issue for policy, because we cannot allow people to be marginalized simply because they are disabled. And it's not of their making. The types of occupations, main occupation type is still agriculture. So we find our livelihood mainly on agriculture, although on the income side doesn't account for much. We also have 17, 15, 19% that are clerks, service workers. What's in the report that I thought will be interesting for many people to know, because I always hear this question, how many people are employed in government? So we counted 89,000 people who were employed in government. And it was almost 50% male and female. And we counted another 30,000 are employed in parastatals. And in parastatals, about 20,000 males and 10,000 females. Another thing where we should be extremely proud of as Namibians is the literacy rate. Our literacy rate for the nation is really approaching 90%. But as you can see, it varies from region to region. In some regions like Commerce, the literacy rate is close to 100%. And here we capture people 15 years and above. So we asked them, can you read and write? We did not test. I must make that qualification. But I think this is fairly a good reflection if you have that. And we've also looked at sex or gender. And really, I think one of the targets, MDG targets that we will definitely meet will be on literacy. But as you can see, some regions like Konini have a literacy rate of only 64%. Then we looked at early childhood development. And here is that category of 0 to 4%, where we have about 280,000 young kids that we should prepare for the future. And only 13% of them attend educare or pre-primary. Now, I think this is also very important for me, because on the one hand, we have the high literacy rate, and sometimes we complain about the quality. And I think the quality is maybe attributed to the fact that we must do a bit more at the basics. If we can get more people in ECDs, then hopefully it will improve the quality also of our graduates. And the other nice thing with the ECDs is that you can actually combine it, for example, with feeding schemes at a school level, and it can also prevent stunting, it can prevent malnutrition. Again, it's a policy issue that could be investigated further. The people that attend early childhood development centers, as you can see, is mainly still in Irongo, Karas, Commerce region. The other regions, very, very little early childhood development centers. And then I'm going to conclude with this slide. There are also a number of the population that doesn't have either one parent or both parents. In the case of both parents, about close to 3%. These are people 18 years and below that doesn't have a mother and a father. And in instances like this, one of the siblings will become the head of the household. And in the report, we have estimates of households that are headed by kids as per region. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the end of my presentation. This was just an appetizer. There's a lot more in the report. Please read it.